Hogan just said that because certain things were cheaper under Trump, it's a failure of Biden. Will Hogan acknowledge, therefore, that because those very same goods were cheaper under Obama, Trump also did something wrong?
Well, I'm sure they were cheaper under Grover Cleveland, too. That's not the point.
That's exactly the point.
The point is, where are we now?
You're just making
Can we get the inflation back to where we were? And the answer is yes, with the right policy.
Are you calling for a deflationary spiral? I mean, here's the thing I don't understand, Megyn, and I'm not asking this rhetorically. I actually want to understand this as someone with a background in economics. If inflation goes below zero, you create a deflationary spiral where people expect things to be cheaper in the future. And so they wait to buy anything, which hurts the economy.
In this video, David Pakman takes Megyn Kelly and Trump insider Hogan Gidley to school in a fiery 2v1 debate. Kelly and Gidley, both loyal Trump defenders, try to spin the usual conservative talking points, blaming Biden for inflation while completely ignoring what happened under Trump. But Pakman isn't here for the nonsense. He calls out their contradictions, shreds their weak arguments, and leaves them scrambling for answers. By the end, it's painfully clear who understands economics and who's just there to push a narrative. This is a must-watch takedown, so stick around to see Pakman completely humiliate them in this debate.
Wait, let me just add to that. So even Trump said this on the stump just last week. He said we were around 1.4%, which is even better than zero for the exact reasons you just cited. Keep going.
2 to 3 is typically what you want. That's where economic growth comes from. So the thing I struggle with, and I really do want to understand it, because for me, people who know me know I don't play political games with gas prices. I don't play political games with inflation. My view on this is just from economics. The goal from which traditional economics, not Marxist left-wing stuff, traditional economics says you want around 3% inflation, because that is an incentive to buy now rather than later, and it's where wage growth and economic growth comes from. Hogan seems to, I guess, want deflation, which doesn't seem to be good. So just maybe someone who knows more can explain it to me.
No, I guess that's not happening now. Okay, let's go. Let's go back to immigration. Oh, go ahead, Hogan, if you want to.
So here's my view on immigration, and I already laid out part of it. I believe that without immigrants, the country collapses, and I think it's abundantly clear. If anything, as far as legal immigration, we probably need to increase it significantly to remain globally competitive, especially as birth rates are starting to decline. Big picture, I think that that's a big issue here. In addition to this, when it comes to the sort of crime narrative, we know from very good studies, both state and federal, both documented and undocumented immigrants commit crime at lower rates than natural-born citizens. Now, I know Trump
even
loves
one
the
is too
lurid
many. Let me just
tales.
take you on that. Well, even one is too many. Why do I have to deal with these illegal immigrants committing felonies against my friends or family when they shouldn't even be here? American-born, that's one thing. I got to deal with Americans. Why should I have to deal with somebody from Venezuela who snuck in here illegally and committed a felony against a family member?
I'm not denying that if they are here illegally, they are subject to deportation, but I'm trying to build up my view to try to have a conversation that goes beyond the talking points on this. So if we start
that's not a talking point. That's actual crimes. We just asked Laken Riley's family down in Georgia.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I
guess it doesn't
correcting
you.
Like
you're talk. It's fine.
I want you to talk, but you're casting an aspersion that I'm spewing out some sort of talking points to you, and I'm saying actual Americans are being killed. It's not a talking point.
We're not really digging more deeply here. We're not really digging more deeply.
David doesn't waste any time. He breaks down the economics like a pro, explaining how moderate inflation, 2 to 3%, is actually a good thing because it fuels spending and economic growth. And here's where it gets hilarious. Even Trump himself once bragged that 1% inflation was perfect and claimed there was none under his watch. But Pakman completely exposes that lie, revealing that inflation under Trump was never zero, and economists actually aim for 2%, not 1%. Instead of facing the facts, Megyn Kelly panics and swerves the conversation to immigration and crime. But Pakman isn't letting that slide. He calls her out for dodging the debate and refusing to engage with reality. It's the oldest conservative trick in the book. When the numbers don't back you up, just pivot to fear-mongering. And that's exactly what Kelly is doing.
We have a situation here where obviously we are completely understaffed when it comes to immigration judges and being able to adjudicate these asylum claims. We also have circumstances in people's home countries that we could be better working on at a fraction of what it costs to deal with the problem domestically, which no one ever wants to do. I actually think that one of the great tragedies on this issue is that both Democrats and Republicans, for different reasons, have been unable to get us closer to what we might call a more semi-permanent solution on some of the low-hanging fruit. I mean, even most Republicans I talk to acknowledge the individuals brought here undocumented when they were minors, we're not going to send them back. They need a path to normalization here, whether it's a permanent residency or citizenship. There's so many things everybody agrees on. And for different reasons, either because they don't want their political enemies to get the credit for it or because they want to save it for when they get elected as something to run on, we could deal with probably 80% of this. I think this might be crazy. I think Hogan and I could agree on 80% of this if we were in charge of this. And it's disgusting to me how both sides, to different degrees, end up getting in the way of permanent solutions for political reasons. Now, obviously, as someone on the left, I'm more partial to the view of immigration that I think is more on my side than Hogan's. But that being said, I don't see any progress on this issue because everybody wants to keep reserve and use it to their advantage in a way that goes beyond other issues. And I
Let me ask you about that, Hogan. Let me ask you about that because Trump, as you well know, his biggest critic on immigration is Ann Coulter, who is a dyed-in-the-wool conservative. And she's as angry as anybody about the fact that, as Dave just said, the wall was not built. Now, Trump had constructed some wall, but it was not completed the way Trump promised. And to Dave's point, Trump had control of Congress and the White House. The Republicans had control of Congress and the White House for his first 2 years of his presidency. He actually could have pushed massive reform through on immigration and did not do it.
You know what else isn't happening? You hitting that like and subscribe button. Go on, smash it. It helps the channel big time. Now back to the debate. Pakman exposes the real reason immigration reform never happens. Both parties keep it as a political pawn instead of actually solving it. He even says he and Hogan Gidley could probably agree on 80% of a real solution, proving it's not about policy. It's about keeping the issue alive for political gain. And the irony? Even die-hard Trump fan Ann Coulter called him a liar over the border wall. That alone shows how much of this is just political theater. But instead of addressing real solutions, Megyn, Kelly, and Hogan Gidley pivot back to their usual fear-mongering and cherry-picked stats. Classic move, when you can't win on facts, just stir up fear.
Yeah, with Paul Ryan as speaker? I don't think so. I mean, some of the biggest fights we had internally at the White House were with Republicans who didn't want to change the system, who didn't want to build the wall. Remember, we had to use military money to do it. Nancy Pelosi stood up many times and pounded her fist in those meetings or walked out and said, I'm not giving a single dime to this border wall, and then went on to sign multiple budgets that had border wall funding in it. So Dave's right. The whole thing's a political sham and theater for the most part. I would argue more on the left than the right. But even still, the solution here has to do with preventing people from coming into this country illegally. Yes. We already let in more than a million people a year legally. So how many should we let in, I guess, is the real question here. And as far as what you pointed out at the beginning, Megyn, think of it this way. Every rape, every murder, every burglary, every assault, every DUI committed by an illegal alien is 100% preventable because they should not be here in the first place. And while our citizens may commit crime at a higher rate than legal or illegal immigrants, we got our own problems. Why would we import more? And now with people flying in from other nations, the Chinese nationals spiking from a few hundred in the first couple of years of Joe Biden, now 35,000, I think, already in this year. We're not even halfway through the year. That shows you we are in line for some serious problems that we're going to have to face and address in the future. And it's going to be a difficult task if Donald Trump were to win re-election to fix all of this, because we're in such a hole now. The American people hate where we are with immigration. We're going to have to
That's why
fix
Joe Biden's doing something. That's clearly why. I mean, he's feeling the political pressure. Yeah. But just as an FYI,
I know you probably
in 2018
Megyn,
under Trump, we had 396,000
If
illegal migrants come in. That's not including the gotaways, the ones who weren't caught.
Yep.
But we had just about 400,000 come in. 2023 under Joe Biden, add 2 million to that. 2.4 million. It is not the same. It is nowhere near the same. We are at true crisis levels as defined by not Megyn Kelly, but the Obama administration.
Right.
This is a crisis that needs something done about it. What Joe Biden's done here is teaspoons in the...
And to wrap things up, this debate was a textbook example of how conservatives use fear-mongering to dodge real solutions. Hogan Gidley admits Republicans had total control and still did nothing. Yet somehow it's all the Democrats' fault? Megyn Kelly pushes the usual crisis narrative, tossing out scary stats while conveniently ignoring the policy failures on both sides. And of course, the go-to conservative tactic kicks in, painting undocumented immigrants as a massive threat even though crime exists in every community. It's just another distraction from actually fixing the issue. By the end, Pakman exposes the entire debate for what it really is, political theater. They don't want solutions, they want talking points. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments.